Who are your favorite aesthetic athletes? You probably have people like David Lade and Jeff Seid in mind. Or if you're into the newer gen, you thought of Alex Eubank. If you like calisthenics, Chris Heria might be the one. And me, of course. Right, guys? You thought of me, right? Anyways, what's interesting is that all of these people's physiques do differ quite a bit. So aside from great genetics, there is a top thing that these guys all have in common, which brings me to my first point of this video: body fat percentage. I know that's not what you want to hear. We will get to the actual training styles in a minute, but it's essential that I talk about this because even though it seems obvious, people tend to attribute too much importance to how they train while avoiding to address how they eat. To be fair, I do understand why it's a subject that's avoided. For a lot of people, controlling the diet is much harder than the training itself. Trust me, I know all too well the struggle of trying to change your eating habits. Unfortunately for us, no matter how much muscle we have, if we're holding too much fat, we won't be able to fully achieve the aesthetic look. If there's one thing you take away from this video, it should be that there are infinite ways to achieve an aesthetic physique. But no matter what method you choose, the one component that is essential in all cases is having a low body fat percentage. With that being said, let's dive into what I personally think is the best training style for actually building the aesthetic body. Now, although most of my videos are about calisthenics, I do try to keep an unbiased lens at all times. So if we consider the fundamental training principle that is specificity, bodybuilding has to be the method to go for if your goal is purely aesthetics. Unlike other styles of training where there are other objectives like getting stronger, getting more athletic, or learning skills, the sole purpose of bodybuilding is to build muscle. That makes it the most efficient and optimal way of reaching an aesthetic physique. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, I prefer the body of a calisthenics athlete. Bodybuilders are too bulky. Personally, I think that logic is flawed. Firstly, when people say that bodybuilders are too bulky, they often have in their minds the open bodybuilder type of physique. And honestly, I think it's almost disrespectful to think that just because you start training like a bodybuilder, you'll end up anywhere close to this bulky physique. These guys have elite genetics, work extremely hard, blast gear, and dedicate their lives to looking like this. Trust me, you won't accidentally get too bulky just because you train like a bodybuilder. Secondly, muscle isn't built overnight. Your muscle mass will slowly grow over weeks, months, and years. So you won't go to bed one night being small and then wake up the next day suddenly being too big for your liking. Realistically, you will train and gradually reach the size that you like. And then all you have to do is slow down your training, adjust your diet, and focus on just maintaining the physique. Becoming too bulky just because you train like a bodybuilder should never be an issue for anyone. Thirdly, not all calisthenics athletes are built the same. Yes, there are plenty of aesthetic calisthenics athletes, but there are just as many calisthenics guys that don't fit the traditional aesthetic look. Therefore, doing calisthenics won't by default make you look a certain way. Remember that. So, does that mean that the other training styles are not good for aesthetics? Of course not. All I'm saying is that they aren't the most optimal. Calisthenics, for example, puts a lot of importance on learning skills, being athletic, explosive, and having mobility. Since you have to split your focus on many different things, it's only natural that you won't build muscle as efficiently in comparison to a training style that purely focuses on building muscle. If we take a look at powerlifting, it's kind of the same idea. The main priority is strength and skill in very specific lifts. Building muscle does come into play, but it is not the main focus. The trap that a lot of people fall into is that they think with this kind of logic: well, I want a physique like Chris Heria, and Chris Heria does calisthenics, therefore I must do calisthenics to look like him. Meanwhile, the truth is that you would more easily achieve a physique similar to Chris Heria if you did bodybuilding. But here's the caveat: if you want to achieve a physique like Chris, and also want to perform skills like him, then of course calisthenics is the best training style for that. At the end of the day, it's all about your goals and priorities. The question of this video was which training style is the best for aesthetics. In this specific context, bodybuilding is number one, but the moment you add more goals that differ from just appearances, the answer changes. Bodybuilding is not number one in all realms of fitness, neither is calisthenics, powerlifting, or anything in between. So what you should do is assess what you want out of your training, and then you can determine the best training method for you. That's it for today's video, guys. Drop a comment if you have any suggestions on what subjects I should cover next. Thanks for watching, and peace.
Tell the little bitch if you keep talking we can get busy. Get rich or die trying feeling like 50. Ball like trouble done bomb too shifty.